here. I can do it. All right. So we are recording this. So if something goes by and you're not sure, don't worry. We'll have the recipes available for you and this video after we're done. And take it away, Tanya.
Okay. Well, welcome. This one's going to be a little bit different. And I did that on purpose. And these are some things that have been on my mind lately. So if you think that desserts are, savory desserts are a little weird, I'm here to tell you that a lot of places do it, different countries. I was introduced to savory bread pudding back in culinary school. So this isn't something new, it just may be something you haven't been exposed to in the past. So Lily, if we can go to the next slide. Can you back up one? There we go. I just wanted to, well, Lily has introduced us, and we wanted to make sure to thank the Community Farm Alliance for the grant that makes all these classes, the virtual workshop training, and all of our videos possible. So we want to take a moment to thank them. And next slide. So we're doing 3 different recipes today, and I just like to give you a little bit of background. The goals for a lot of my recipes that I choose are because they're inexpensive. I want them to be easy to repeat for the most part. Today's a little bit more complicated than what I used to do. They can be used throughout the growing season. They can be used throughout the year. A lot of them don't have a lot of ingredients, or if they do, the focus is on all of the local seasonal produce that we're going to start getting very soon. Well, we're starting to get. A lot of these are foundational recipes, so it's more of a ratio. It's more of memorizing a little formula than an actual recipe. And I'm hoping that for the most part, it's equipment you already have, that you're familiar with, that you don't have to go out and buy something to make these recipes. Okay, next slide. As we're going through this, I did recommend that you handle one recipe today, because these are a little bit more complicated. They take a little bit more time. So I have done some magic of TV, and I'm going to roll through these fairly quickly. You do not have to keep up with me. I will go slow for me, but keep me at your pace as best as possible, because I'm used to, when I'm at a cutting board, just going as fast as I can. So I try to remind myself, but sometimes I forget. So you feel free to remind me, slow down. Secondly, this is your process. You can have the whole hour to do what you want to do. You can be, or hour and a half. You can have beyond that. And you're in your kitchen. So take your time, ask questions. I'll repeat things. I've got 15 onions. If we need to keep going over dicing an onion, we can do that. And give yourself some slack. I am the guide. The recipe is the map. I'm just here to show you how to use the map. So you can go continue on your own. Okay, next slide. So someone might wonder why savory desserts. That may not sound very good to folks. We have a small class today, and I'm kind of wondering if that's why. But the reason I think about them a lot, especially when it comes to, I think about food on a budget a lot. I'm dealing with a lot of college students, so I have to watch what I'm asking them to make, or to, at some point in the future, remake. So I try to keep all of that in mind. So I'd like to find things that extend culinary uses, so that you can throw something together with what you have around. You don't feel like you have to go out and buy dozens of ingredients. It's something a little different, but it's comfortable enough that I think it's approachable. I'm looking for ways personally to reduce the amount of sugar that I consume. So looking for ways to have a final course that doesn't involve a lot of sugar, or a breakfast food besides making sausage and eggs that doesn't contain a lot of sugar is a big goal for me. I think a lot of people share in that. It's a great way to introduce vegetables into every meal, every kind of course. Use up odds and ends, leftovers, and frankly, this is a little bit of a response to the pandemic. People are doing a lot of cooking at home and are challenged, or if people have been laid off from work and are receiving Community Alliance food boxes, TFAT boxes, SNAP benefits, EBT. Sometimes you get a lot of disparate ingredients. And I think these recipes are great ways to combine those. I also really got an idea from Leanne Brown's Good and Cheap. If you have never looked up that cookbook, I recommend it. It's a downloadable free cookbook. Leanne was doing graduate work, and she developed this entire cookbook to be cooked on the SNAP budget each day. So all the recipes are broken down by cost. What I like is that all of them are made from scratch, and they are approachable, but they don't shy away from ingredients. So it's a great resource, and I fully recommend checking it out. Okay, next slide. Also, I just want to say that when we think of desserts, we think of sweet things, but that's not necessarily the case. And if you think about culinary history, we didn't always have an abundance of sugar or sweeteners. And in fact, the word dessert comes from a French word that means to clear the table. It was just a course that was served after all other dishes were removed. And that could be coffee, that could be a liqueur, that could be a cheese plate, and also some sweet confectionery. So we need to look at the 360 definition of dessert here when we're looking at this. Next slide. Other dishes you can try out that I have before. We just filmed a video for vegetable strudel, and we're gonna post that. I've just got to edit it, and that will be in the CFA playlist next week. The other thing I love to do, and probably was the biggest impetus for this course, is savory oatmeal or savory hot cereals. Again, that's a way to reduce the sugar that I have in my diet. I do a lot of oatmeal cooked in vegetable broth or chicken broth, add pintos, cheese, chilies, onions, salsa, and egg on top. It's a great breakfast. It's an inexpensive, fairly healthy one, and I can't recommend it enough. So if you can get around your concept that oatmeal has to be sweet, it makes for a great breakfast, and I recommend it. Muffins. I love savory muffins. So like your jalapeno cornbread muffins. One of my favorites that I've listed here is onion and walnut. Very savory muffin. One of my favorites. Savory scones, like with ham and cheese and chives and all of that good stuff. And of course, savory pies. I think that might be what we're familiar with most. Next slide. This is actually a picture of that vegetable cobbler from Leanne's book. So today we're going to start with a farmer's market bread pudding, so I can get that in, get that steaming. And then we'll go to the veggie cobbler. And then we'll finish up with the Southwest cheesecake. I think that's the best order for today. So hang with me if you're doing the cheesecake. Just hang out, or you can get some things prepped up if you want. Next slide. The other thing, kind of a question I have, is I did make some notes about some mise en place when I sent out the email with the lists on it. So I just want to make sure if you have a hard squash or a root vegetable like a sweet potato and you're doing the cobbler, that you've par cooked that, roasted it, something. Have you roasted your garlic if you're doing the cheesecake? And did you pre-char your poblanos? If not, I will go over that and the garlic just as soon as we're finished with the presentation. So don't worry about it. It just may take some time. Next. Okay, all the uses. I've kind of talked about this a bit, so I don't want to belabor it. But you can use savory desserts as a dessert. You just have to change your mindset. They work great as appetizers. We used to make a blue cheese walnut cheesecake and put maybe some figs or something on top. We used to use that as an appetizer a lot when I worked at Holly Hill Inn. It's great for a light lunch with a salad, maybe on the side, or make it a side to a meal. That applies more to the cobbler or the bread pudding. And I think that's it. Yes. Any questions before we begin? Otherwise,
I don't see any. I'm going to drop a link to the Good and Cheap cookbook into the chat here in a second.
Perfect. All right, so I'm going to get us started on the garlic. If you have not par-roasted or pre-roasted your garlic, I've got some foil right here. I have a whole head of garlic. And all I'm going to do is take all the paper off into my discard. Just going to knock that off with my thumbs. The worst of it. Oh, try not to do that. Try not to knock off your clothes. Just the worst of the papery bit. I'm going to take this knife and I'm just going to take the tips off of each clove, cutting straight down. Place that in the middle of the foil. I like to use a double thickness because I'm going to put a little oil on here. So drizzle. Whoop, a little bit more than a drizzle. And I like to sprinkle a bit of salt because this gets really sweet. And then you pull the foil together and turn it down, and you want to seal it. So it's kind of steamy. Now, you can cook this low and slow for about 45 minutes to an hour, so about 325. But if you have your oven on a different temperature, depending on the recipe you're doing, you can throw it in there at 375 or 400. You just have to watch it, pull it out a little early. You're looking for soft, slightly darkened, but if they get really dark, you're gonna have some really sticky garlic. This will sweeten and really round out the flavor of the garlic. I know a lot of our local farmers and even the South Farm grow garlic now, so that's something you can easily find if you're looking for local foods. Next, we're gonna chop up the veg for the bread pudding. I've got a couple of leeks. Let me tell you, leeks are dirty, dirty vegetables. And that's not an innuendo. It's just they grow with all of these greens sticking up that make these. They're like little water slides for dirt every time it rains. So I soaked and soaked and soaked these and washed and rinsed and washed and rinsed again. So I cut off the big green parts. And I'm going to take off the hairy root. Sometimes even after you do all that, you might still find some dirt down in there. So I'm going to have these, and I'm just going to check to make sure there's a little dirt there. Here, just get that out. I'm not going to use up into the dark green, mostly the white and light green parts. That's pretty good. If you do find dirt, then just throw those back into the water after you've cut them and just sort of splay here together a little bit more. So they're worth it. I love these. Okay, we're gonna cut these into little half moons, maybe about 1/8 of an inch. Just take your time, and I'm gonna cut up till it really starts variegating green. Toss this way. These are great to save for stock. My favorite veggie stocks is mushroom stems, leek greens, and parsnip peels. These are wonderful stuff. So a lot of these recipes have a lot of alliums. We've got leeks, onions, garlic. Big part of the savory piece of it. All right, so I've got all my leeks. I'm gonna put those in a prep bowl or container. Okay, now I've got this local spinach. I saw that the farm name was on the bag and it wasn't. So I can't tell you exactly what farm. I got this at the co-op. I've already stemmed it. If you have baby spinach, you don't even have to worry about that. Some of these are a little big, so I'm just gonna tear by hand. Anything that's more than a bite, they will wilt down. If you have a bag of the pre-washed baby spinach, then you don't even have to do this step. So I've got spinach there. I've got a cup of frozen peas. Those are just thawed. As you know, English peas would be a lot more work. So and we don't have it yet. Local. It's not quite worth it. I have 2 cloves of garlic. I'm going to pop them out of the paper and just mince those. Putting my knife down, I'm going to whack it with the heel of my hand, and that pops the paper. Take that off. And you've got a little woody end right there. I'm going to hang on to that. That gives me a little handle while I'm slicing. But I'm going to get rid of it at the end. There we go. There we go. Okay, so holding it, using a claw, keeping all of my fingers out of the way. I'm going to leave the tip of the knife on the board and just slice. Down to the woody part. Put it on the flat side so it's stable. I always tell the students, stability and manageability are the way that you keep yourself safe when you're doing a lot of cuts. So now I can put my hand on the spine of the knife and lift it, lower my knife. Mince. This is your mince cut. You need to move your garlic around a bit. Knock it off the knife. One more time, just grab your knife. And that in its nice little bowl. Start the saute. I'm going to move you around. Let's take a little trip today. Okay, so I've got a large saute pan. I'm going to turn it on medium-high heat. Mine's going to heat up pretty quickly on this gas burner. I'm going to use about a tablespoon. I cook with cooking oil, but I love how butter enhances the flavored leeks. So we're gonna wait for this to get warm. This is enough butter. I'm gonna let it melt as it heats. I'm gonna take my leeks, the spinach, and the garlic. A little bit of salt and pepper. Those are the things I'm gonna use right now. So I'm just waiting for this to melt. When it does, I'm just gonna toss in the leeks. Saute those for a few minutes. So you're gonna want a large spoon, a high heat spatula, something to move everything around.
Hey, T.
Yes.
We might want to either point the microphone more towards you. It looks like it's pointing up a little bit. When you get near the stove, we lose you a fair bit.
Okay. I'm gonna put it. Woo. How about now?
It's a little better.
A little bit, little
Yeah.
better. I'll
Yeah.
kind of try to talk this way. I'll
Thanks.
also project a little bit.
Oh, that sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, I'm used to the earbud microphones being right by my mouth. It'll be like an old class. I have to yell over all the noise. Okay, my butter's melted. I'm gonna put in the leeks. Just let them saute down. Leeks are marvelous additions. They have the allium taste, but they're much milder, sweeter, buttery. They smell amazing. Oh, I can also see. I can turn the mic up a little bit. Turn that up all the way. I hope you don't get too much background noise. Now,
Sounds good.
you don't want a lot of color, so if you're getting a lot of browning right away, you might want to turn it down. We're just looking for these to soften, turn translucent, like we do with onions. You could sub onions, shallots, anything like that. Okay, now I'm gonna add the spinach, and we're just wilting that. I'm gonna add the garlic at the same time. Just don't like to add the garlic at first because it can burn. And then as this is wilting, little pinch of salt, big pinch of salt for all those leaves, and a little pinch of pepper. Just move it around. It should not take a huge amount of time. And as soon as your spinach wilts, you want to pull this off the stove and set it aside to cool just a bit. All right, I'm gonna pull my saute pan off. Then I'm gonna come back to the cutting board. So I'm gonna turn you around. I think all we'll have to do for this recipe on the stove. There we go. First thing I'm gonna do before I forget is spray my dish. I'm using a smaller dish than you are. You should have a 9x13. I'm not gonna make as much. I inhaled a little bit of that. Woo. And we're gonna cut the bread. I went to the We Baked Too Much cart. I have the Woohoos from Kroger. Always a great way to indulge your bread habit without spending too much. So this is sun-dried tomato Parmesan bread. Oh, that would be good with our green veggies. So I'm gonna cut this up. I'm actually gonna measure the bread that I cut up. This is the way we used to do all of the bread pudding at Holly Hill Inn. So I want 5 cups, which would be just over a quart. I'm gonna cut it into 1 to 1.5 inch cubes. Let's see if this doesn't, I have a backup bread. This doesn't. Use a serrated knife on this. And if your bread is stale, that's even better. It will soak up the milk, egg, custardy mixture and not fall apart. So that's why I like a sturdy bread or a stale bread. Cubes. Oh yeah, we've got plenty. Here's a quart. I'll just put the rest of this, should be fine. Don't have to add any more. Okay, so there's our bread. I'm gonna set that aside just a minute. Now we're gonna make the custard. So I said custard. Basically, that's any mixture of eggs and dairy. I have milk today, JD's whole milk, which we have available in our co-op, but I've seen this other places. I think there's even a CSA that includes JD's milk sometimes. And I've got Chelsea's eggs. Chelsea's a graduate of UK. She has a chicken and beef farm with her family. So I'm gonna put 6 of those into this bowl. Love all the colors of the shells in her eggs. Sometimes they're sort of light blue, brown, white, yellow. I'm gonna whisk those up. Add in a cup and a half of the milk. You can do a mixture of milk and cream, makes it very velvety. Find a custard mixture that you like and stand by it. And once you do, once you have that formula locked in your head, for everything, like baked custard with fruit, bread puddings, sweet and savory, corn pudding. I've done, custard is a multi-use mixture. I'm gonna add in the milk. It gets all mixed together. About a teaspoon of salt, pinch of pepper, and you should have 2 cups of grated cheese. Kenny's. I'm a big fan of Kenny's Farmhouse cheese. This is the blue Gouda. I thought that would be great with all of the mild green vegetables in the sauteed leeks. I'm gonna use about a cup and a half because I want to put a little bit on top. Mix that in. Oh, it's going to stick together. So sprinkle that in. And leave a little bit for garnishing. Mix that. And then we just add everything. Now, if you want, you can do bread puddings of any kind the night before. And that way the bread soaks in the custard and it penetrates a little better. Push that down in, make sure it starts soaking up all that mixture. In fact, a lot of the time, if I do a bread pudding, I will do the soaking part way in advance. Now, this is a little loose, but you remember we have to add all these veggies. So I'm gonna add that cup of peas. I'm going for spring here. So leaves, peas, leeks, because I'm ready. Ready for growing season. Where's my sausage? I'm gonna scrape in all the sauteed veggies. Oh, it smells so good. Oh, I got in your way. Sorry about that. Mix that. You can add fresh herbs. You can add anything to, I think you saw in the pictures, all the different iterations that you can make with this. There was one version that was croque monsieur with ham and Swiss with blue cheese. And as we go through the growing season, you can just change up the vegetables. I know Campus Kitchen, if you're aware of them, they glean food and repurpose it to make meals for students and some senior living buildings, organizations. And they get a lot of bread donated. So this is one great thing to do with it. So we want, I may not put all this in. So I want to make sure I have a good mixture of bread to custard. Now, when you're serving this, you may turn people off. If you say bread pudding, and they get something savory. My ex really reacted intensely to that. It grossed him out for me to say bread pudding and then serve something savory like goat cheese and caramelized onion. So you have to be careful with the marketing of this with your family. A little bit more. The eggs will puff up, so I want to leave some room. Now I'm going to cover this though right now. And basically, I'm doing that sort of steam. Cover it and really feel that foil down. That way it cooks, but doesn't get too brown. We'll take this off at the last 5-10 minutes. All right. So that's got our bread pudding in. I'm going to serve that with a warm marinara. Do a red pepper coulis, a mushroom sauce. I was just trying to distribute all my different veggies. Okay. So, oh, I forgot to put my cheese on top. I can do that when it comes out or before I brown it. Help me remember. The next recipe we're going to do is the Veggie Cobbler. So this will be a lot of our knife work. You do need some kind of oven-proof pan that you can saute in, but then stick in the oven. So we'll start with an onion. We always start with the onion. Now you can pretty much put any veggie in here you want. I'm going more, this is kind of our winter palette. So that was spring, this is winter, cheesecake will be summer. Just so I could show you how you could use these throughout the year. So I've got a half an onion. If you have a whole onion, you just want to take the stem off, the root. I don't have as much as you might have. Take all that papery stuff off. Put it on the stable side. Use your claw and cut halfway through. From stem to root. So you've got this little flame shape still. Don't cut through the equator. Okay? And then when you give yourself this stable side, you want to pull it close to you so that you can hold your knife parallel to the board. And then you're just going to lift up about 3/8 of an inch and make a cut almost, but not all the way through. About a finger's width is going to hold all this together till the end. So cutting, about to, it's not even, about done to there. I'm going to stop, pull the knife out, go another 3/8 up. So parallel to the board, my knife is flat, it's not turned. And if you go through the end, that's fine. This is a big onion, that's why I have half. So I'm going to do one more cut. Oh, there's some skin that needs to come off. Now I'm going to turn it toward me. Leaving this end attached, I'm just going to press the bottom tip of my knife in, still about 3/8 of an inch apart, so everything's even. Just get these cuts the same size, so that they're the same size when they come out, and they'll cook evenly. And I'm going to turn it back, so this is the attached side, and cut across that. I get a medium dice. And that's more than I need. But you can cut this up too. I'll just show you. just cut strips and cut around that core. That's going to be really tough. We don't want that in there. And cut across those strips. So you're always breaking down into slices, then strips, and then your squares, if that's what you want. This off the board. I'm gonna go a little quickly here. Tell me if you've got different veggies, what kinds you have, what you're gonna add, what you've got laying around. All right, gonna go with the carrots. And oh no, I've got everything set out. Here we go. I'm going to peel. Don't forget that peelers are blades, so you have to watch them. You have to cut away from yourself still. It can be very sharp. And that the hard way when I came to this kitchen. All of the peelers are brand new. Cut away and then just turn the carrot around. Okay, if you don't have a peeler, just use the edge of your knife and scrape. And if they're baby carrots, like little locally grown carrots, you may not even have to take the peel off. Just scrub. These I want in chunks, so it's not a slice. I'm just gonna take a bit off. And as I move up the carrot and it gets thicker, my slices will become narrower because we're looking for similar volume. Using my knuckle, that's kind of helping me keep my slices regular. Get really thin up here. And toss that in there. And this can go in a kettle or some kind of container. At home I use yogurt, sour cream, whatever I've got. In big chunks while it's narrow, and then slices. Shrooms, we're just going to slice these. I said a 12-ounce package. I had these left over. I don't have quite 12 ounces, but I think we'll come out okay. It's a very forgiving recipe. I'm just going to slice these. So hold with your claw. Don't even lift up the tip of your knife. Just lift and lower.
Hey, T, when you're done with the mushrooms or while you're doing it, we've got someone who's struggling to break apart her cauliflower and wondering the best way to attack one of those.
We'll do that next. I rinse these. A lot of people have arguments over the best way to clean mushrooms. But our food science guru, Harold McGee, says that even if you put mushrooms down in water, they don't take on enough moisture for it to matter if it's just rinsed in water and then drained really well. These turned out beautifully. They're still dry. They didn't get slick. I like to clean my mushrooms well. It's a sterilized medium they're grown in, but I still want them to cleaned really well. Okay, so cauliflower next. Now, bigger, harder vegetables can be a challenge. I like to get things out of my way. So I'm going to snap these off, these outer leaves, just with my hand. Get rid of those. These are great for stock if you're making something cauliflower based. Otherwise, cruciferous vegetables can make stock kind of sulfurous and stinky. But for something cauliflower based, like a cauliflower risotto, they're wonderful. Now, here is your core. So I'm trying to do this backwards, but cut away from you and just cut through kind of like a V. So you're trying to meet your knife in each of these cuts in the middle of the core. So go all the way around. You'll see florets are falling. If you have trouble getting it out at this point, turn it over and slam it. Okay? Maybe I shouldn't do that with the mic. And then just pop it out. And then I've got florets. I want bite-sized pieces. So we're gonna cut this up a little more. I love cauliflower. I use it a lot. So we're just gonna cut like steaks, like you would if you were grilling it whole and steaks. If you've ever substituted this for like a pistachio for vegetarian friends, and then just have any other pieces. I like keeping a lot of the stem. You can cut in a grid, just a little square. May not use all this. Make it a lot. Cabbage, all the cruciferous vegetables get bigger as you cut them. Oh, yes, about that. Save that for something else.
Tanya, can you clarify what you mean when you say the vegetable gets bigger as you cut it? I thought the whole point of cutting was to make them smaller.
The amount, it seems like when you shred cabbage,
yeah,
tiny little head, and it'll make a humongous bowl of shredded cabbage. Whereas like spinach, kale, everything shrinks down when you cook it. Cruciferous vegetables just get bigger as you it's magic. Cooking is magic. All right, I'm just gonna cut the florets off, but now you all know, if you've watched me before, I love the stem. So I'm gonna cut off the little bitty stems. This was really tender. I'm not even gonna peel it. Watch my time. All right, I'll just do one crown. Kind of eyeing the ratio on these vegetables. Celery. Just gonna cut this on an angle. Let's see if I can save some of this. Right there. Thin slices. This is beautiful celery. Just got it. It's an organic celery. I got it at the co-op, but it smells strong and it's super crisp. It reminds me, if you've ever had cutting celery, the people who say celery has no flavor need to try cutting celery. Super flavored. That's gonna go in a bowl. Lastly, not lastly, second to last, penultimately, I've got 2 more things. I'm gonna cut up these 3 cloves of garlic. I think I just slice these. So pop the paper. And Mike really loves studs. We're gonna go a little ASMR. Okay, pop the paper. On camera, it never wants to cooperate. It's a diva. And I'm just gonna slice. Hold on that little woody end and slice. With all of these other veg. Woody bits. Container. Now I said butternut, but I have butternut. I don't, but I do have these lovely little potatoes got from Elmwood Stock Farm. They are an Asian variety, so they have red skin, white flesh, but they're still sweet potatoes. And I'm just gonna take it. I'm gonna leave it peel on. I want that nutrition. I want that fiber. These are tiny. Just gonna slice this one. Maybe half this. Just kind of eye it, feel it, talk to it, have a conversation with your vegetables. See what works. Yeah, these are half moons are great. Any kind of root veg, winter, fall squash. Now, when it gets to August, I love to do like a ratatouille for this veggie cobbler. Yes. If you have a butternut though, just cut it into chunks. That up. And that's all my veggies. We finally got there. But we also need 3 tablespoons of cornstarch and veg stock and optional hot sauce. All I'm going to do is whisk the cornstarch into the veg stock. And I have, all right. So you want to do this while the stock is cold. Otherwise oh, that's my egg. You want to put cornstarch in cold liquids always, because it starts to cook right away and it'll clump up and just form hard clumps that you cannot get apart. So always do it in cool liquid. And you don't need this much liquid to incorporate cornstarch. This is just how we're going to prep up for today. All right. Big saute. No, I'm sorry. The Dutch oven today. You don't have to have a Dutch oven. You can do this. There we go. You can do a cast iron skillet. Anything that can go from stovetop into the oven. So we're going to turn that on medium-high heat. And I do have a little oil here. We're going to get these on, saute, add the cornstarch broth mixture. Yes, my broth is purple. We save veg scrap to freeze. And I was just dumping in bags for my veggie stock, not realizing there was a big core of red cabbage. So it would make a great dye. So just don't pay attention to my purple stock. All right, I'm gonna put a little oil at the bottom of the pan. Let that get hot. And as far as any kind of order, I'm gonna saute the mushrooms, onions, and celery first. Get them started, get the water out of them. Toss in the garlic, just like we did last time. When the onions get translucent, toss in the garlic, 1 minute saute on that, and then we'll add the hard vegetables, and then we'll add the stock. I have also some crushed tomato. If you have a can of tomatoes, you want to pop that open now. If you have whole tomatoes, it is with a toddler's glee that I will tell you, just stick your hand down in there and start squishing. It's wonderful. It's freeing to squish up whole tomato while they're in the can. All right, I'm gonna add, now get close to the surface so you don't splash hot oil on yourself. Onion, celery, gonna smell good in here. Mushrooms, I don't know. You use your judgment. Well, that might be a lot of mushrooms. Maybe a little salt. So that will encourage the vegetables to give off their water and not brown. Oh, carrots. Sorry, throw in your carrots if you have carrots. Still waiting to hear if anybody's doing anything different. And then whatever's your harder vegetable, the one that you par cooked, that goes in last because it's already cooked. We're just waiting for it to get warm. So if I say all this, starting to give off water. And once your onions get clearer, I'm trying to push this a little bit. You take your time. I'm going to roll through this just so we have time for the last dish. I'm going to throw in the garlic. Give that about a minute. And all the hard veg. Broccoli. Cauliflower. Ooh, maybe not even that much. Stir that around. Don't throw it out of the pan. Do as I say, not as I do. Lovely color. If you're getting a little bit of browning, that's okay. You don't want big swatches of browning. Just a little bit. That's actually wonderful. That's caramelized sugar. Color is starting to pop on the broccoli. Maybe a little bit more salt. Get that seasoning going. Last is the potatoes or the squash. And then since that's cooked, again, go by your recipe. I'm flying through. I'm going to add the tomatoes. This is acid. Counterbalance all these sweet vegetables. It'll help us scrape up all that browning. Deglazing is what it's called. Make sure it's distributed. I would normally let that cook a little bit. Okay. Optionally, again, you could add that hot sauce. I have a little bit of dry thyme. Sprinkle in there. You could use fresh herbs. I would do that at the end. If you want, you could add protein, animal protein, beans, anything like that if you want it. I'm going to stir up the cornstarch again. It tends to settle. Get really hard on the bottom. Use a fork for this. You use your hand for this. Usually when I have a little slurry bowl, just take my finger and stir it up again. You also have teeny tiny slurry whisks. Adorable. Bring those out. Okay, I'm gonna add in my mixture. Hopefully the red will cover up the purple. Oh my, look, that's thickening right away. We're gonna bring that up to a boil, and then I'm gonna cover it, stick it in the oven as we stir up our biscuit mix for the top. You could use any kind of cobbler topping you like. I'd avoid the sweet ones. But some people I know use like the Bisquick method. Of course, you have to leave the sugar out. Or you could roll pastry, dumplings on top. This is kind of a drop biscuit. And some people just put regular rolled and cut biscuits on top. Some of those pictures I had the rolled and cut biscuits. I'm going to taste my sauce. I'm going to make sure it's got enough salt. Maybe needs a little more pepper. So I've got tasting food. It's always taste, taste, taste. all that needs salt. And it's pretty bright, but I'm gonna put just a little bit of lemon zest. With all these sweet veggies, I like to brighten it a little bit. Anything really fatty or really sweet and earthy is always emphasized better with a little bright flavor. A little bit more. And you can do this as well. Just always remember you can add more salt, can't take it away. Stir that up. Maybe even another pinch of pepper. It's good for the veggies, not enough for the sauce. Okay, so it's thick and it's bubbling. So we've got it almost out of wood. So at some point, as we're assembling the biscuits, I will put it in the oven. I have everything pre-measured. If you don't, again, don't worry about keeping up. Take your time. If you have questions, we'll hang around for a minute after this is over. Hopefully we'll answer all of it. Oh no, I've already, it's the cheese I'm still measuring. I do these things to help myself, and then I forget what I do. Okay, I've got a cup and a half of Weisenberger AP flour, half a cup of Weisenberger stone ground yellow cornmeal, a cup, actually this is a little bit more, of Kenny's cheese. This is the peppercorn Asiago. It's one of my favorites. I have I believe it's a teaspoon salt, pepper. I'm just gonna do, I just wanna do a generous pinch. And I have a little baking powder, tablespoon of baking powder. And then I have a cup of the JD's buttermilk, my absolute favorite buttermilk. It's great for cornmeal or cornbread, biscuits, all of them. So also, you need a stick of butter. If you've read ahead, I'm gonna put this in the oven. If you've read ahead, you'll know that you need to freeze it. You have two choices. You can freeze it before and grate it really fast so that it doesn't melt. I like to grate it from the fridge and then stick it in the freezer. So I'm putting the veggies in, let them cook slowly and not burn on them. So this we used to do in the restaurant all the time. You saw these a lot, covered it a little bit better. But what I did was take the stick of butter, grate it while it was still hard, cold, and kind of wrapped it up in the wrapper and stuck it in the freezer. You can keep this in your freezer so you can make biscuits, all of them, pastry, and it's ready to go. And it's super hard so that it coats the flour like it's supposed to. So bowl, put in the flour. You can do this in a food processor if you want. I'm just doing it with my hands. Flour, cornmeal. Now we're going to coat that with the butter. Now when you do this, don't smush it too much back together or you're defeating the point. This breaks it up so that before, I did smush it a bit too much. Before the heat in your hands can melt it, make it not keep its structure. We want to coat, we want to squish, and cut. Let me turn here. Now that I have flour, now that I have flour on my hands, let's turn around. Okay. So we're just lifting and pinching and sort of rubbing very quickly. I have very hot hands. I couldn't be a baker. My hands are too hot. You could use a pastry knife, but I like this. I like interacting, talking to my food. And you want it to get to a course meal with some like pea-sized little pieces of butter to melt away. But you're coating the flour. You need to feel that the flour is coated, the cornmeal is. then take your buttermilk. All right. And this and almost forgot my leavener, baking powder and salt. And I also have just a little bit of smoked paprika for some depth. Love this smoked paprika. Let's see it again. Let me kind of fluff and throw that in. That should have gone in with the flour, folks. I do apologize. Turn on a pinch of pepper. We're generous. And so I like to make a well in the center, pour that in, and then I sort of flip the flour mixture over it. I just keep doing that. Turn my bowl. So this is gently incorporating, so not toughening my dough. And it's starting to come together. So again, I'm gonna add about half a cup of the cheese now, put a little bit on top. Let's go ahead. You could leave that out. We could do some more time. Add a little time. And just mix till it starts to come together. There's a name for this press. The French have a name for this. Of course they do. But you just sort of press it together. You're not kneading, just press. That's very gentle. So get it all incorporated. I'm forming kind of a disc. I'm gonna let those veggies cook just for another minute. We'll start to get prepped up for the cheesecake. We need to go. While we're waiting, actually, I'm gonna move that ahead. Just like I told you on the other stuff, I'm gonna speed this up. So we're gonna put the biscuit on now. As if this has cooked for a full 25 minutes or so. So voila. Got our veggie mixture. And you can take a couple of spoons or a scoop. I thought I got one. Here we go. Scoop a couple of spoons and you're dropping. These are drop biscuits. You don't want to cover all of this up. You want it to bubble through like a beautiful red veggie cobbler. I'm going to put the lid back on. I'm going to put all the dough. Now that I've said don't cover everything. Okay. I'm just going to sprinkle this. But still, you've got room for that sauce to bubble up. Okay. Thank you. We're going to put this back in. And I actually remembered, still need hot pads. Okay. Uncovered. All right, that is the veggie cobbler. We're going to move on very quickly to our cheesecake. This one is wonderful. I'm taking us to midsummer when we have tomatoes, when we have peppers, herbs, onions, all that kind of stuff. So moving us ahead. All right, we got to make the crust. Now I had so much left over, I did one ahead. And I had enough crust left over that I'm not gonna make this in front of you. But all this is smashed up tortilla chips. And of course, I've seen me use these before. I can't go on enough. These are Hickory King tortilla chips from Sunflower Sundries. Jennifer over there, growing an heirloom variety and grinding up all this herself. So these are amazing, crispy, wonderful corn flavor. You can smash them in a bag with a rolling pin or put them in a food processor. And we're just gonna sprinkle this in the bottom, enough to cover the seam.
I'm thinking, Tanya, if you have, every time I get a bag of tortilla chips, there's always about that much smashed up in the bottom anyway.
You could eat your chips and then pour that out of the bottom.
Yeah.
So I think it was a half in the recipe. This is about half that. A little bit of melted butter and just pressing. You could take, I have a very flat meat tenderizer or the bottom of a cup to kind of press this in, make it nice and flat. And then you pop that in the oven 10 to 15 minutes at 325. You're letting it brown. Just it's not going to stick together like a graham cracker crust. There's no sugar. So our veggies that we're going to saute. Oh, I'll cut these up first. Then I'll show you the poblano, which I've already done, but I'll show you how to do it. One method. I'm only going to use about a quarter of this pepper because I put too many veggies in yesterday. All right, so I'm gonna get rid of the white pith, any seeds. I'm gonna smash it so that it's flat. Cut it into strips. Eighth of an inch, 2 3/8, something like that. Same size, that's all that matters. Cut across those, same width, so we get a dice. Into a purple and a green onion. Just gonna slice one. Actually, I'll slice two. Go ahead, this can be our garnish. So I'm gonna cut off the roots, just like the leeks. Give them a haircut. Take off anything that's kind of dark, brown, bruised. It's not ready to come off. There we go. I'm gonna cut on an angle. Just looks a little bit more interesting than cutting, but feel free to cut across. You have coins, very regular coins. Cut on an angle. These are curved. Doesn't help. As I get to the greens, I think I'll go on a really harsh angle. This will be our garnish. Okay, I'm gonna put these in a bowl. I'm gonna saute, and while I saute, my echo's throwing me off. Oh, real quick, before I swing you around, we're gonna cut a little cilantro. So just pull a little bit out of your bunch. I said half a bunch, but if you're doing a full cheesecake, that probably would be fine. I love cilantro. You can't use too much. I know some people taste it as soap. You want to leave that out. You can't help it. All right, just pulling leaves off. If you wanted to, you could just chop up the whole plant. The stem is a little bit tougher, not that much. It's one of the few herbs where the stem tastes the same as the leaves. I smell one of our dishes. Nice and cheesy. Okay, I'm gonna stop there for demo purposes. And you just kind of smush into a pile. Don't bruise the leaves, pull them together. Smush is too harsh. Roll them up a bit, and compact them gently. And then slice. You need a sharp knife for this, or you will just bruise the herbs and they'll turn dark. And then you can leave them like that. But since these are going in, and that will go in the mix. Let's get that sauteing done. Go over here. Oh, I need to. My lever's not staying good. Okay. I want you to be able to see. Oh boy. Both sides. Sorry, folks. Always something. Something's loose. Here we go. Turning the right node. Okay, well, I'll turn my burner on. Medium high. Get that pan hot. And then great. Throw. Okay. So for charring, now, hold this right there. Thank you. For charring, you can do this two ways. If you have an open burner, you can turn this up on high. You can lay the peppers on the burner or on a cookie or cake cooling rack and put that over your burner. Turn it up on high. If you're doing several peppers, I would say use a rack because otherwise it's hard to keep them on the burner. And you just put it over the flame, char, turn, char the skin, and you're just charring the skin. Don't leave it on here. You kind of want to babysit it because if you char all this flesh, it loses all the water, shrinks, and sticks to the skin. But you do want to, it'll be black all over. So char the skin. So I did that with the poblanos. Then you throw it into a bowl, put a plastic wrap around it, and let it steam while it cools. And then you just skin it and chop it up. Okay, so that's charring the poblano. Let's see if this is. That's one. All right, well, real quick, while we're having these issues. Yeah. All right, so Jordan's gonna help out, be our camera person. So I'm gonna drizzle this in here. Nice hot pan. I get that shimmer right away. Put in the onions, peppers, any sweet pepper. Oh, nice and hot. I'm gonna turn it down. And then I'm gonna go ahead and throw in the poblanos just to get them mixed up with all the other ingredients, even though they're already cooked. And you're just sauteing until your onion gets translucent and your pepper pops in color. And then remove and set aside to cool. Thank you, dear. Let's see. Okay, folks, well, I've I've twisted everything. We may just use that camera, really. No, if it helps. All right. I hope you can see from here. I will clear out everything in front. Okay. Next, we're going to mix up the cheesecake itself. So, not too bad. Got a bowl. You can do this in a stand mixer, especially if you're doing the full recipe. You can do it with a hand mixer. And I'm just going to whisk it up. So I've got really soft cream cheese. 8 ounces. I'm doing half. I did half yesterday. We don't need that much cheesecake. 1 egg. If you're doing the full, don't go by my amounts. Go by your recipe. A little light bluish green egg from Chelsea. I'm going to use this as cheddar. I've got a cup. Put that in. Again, Kenny's. Smush that together. Maybe fine just with a spatula. I listed some optional spices. I'm just going to push that together till it's a homogeneous mix. And the egg is incorporated. That's the important part. Want a big eggy bite. All right. Now I'm going to put in a little pepper. I have 3 spices. I have some chili powder, any chili powder. If you have just regular old, what you use to make chili, that's fine. You can use ancho or something really fancy, whatever you like to use. I'm just going to do a little pinch. Got cumin, toasted and ground. About a half a teaspoon of that. I love cumin. And a little bit more of that bourbon smoked paprika. My Bourbon Barrel Foods. Mix that. Go ahead and put the cilantro. Again, I'm going to add a little citrus zest. This is very fatty. I was going to add, we'll do it here. Brighter. Just want to get the skin, not the pit. Oh, it smells so good. That's one of the wonderful things about zesting citrus. That wonderful smell. And make sure I get all of that lovely brightness. Okay. And our roasted garlic. First for this, I just need about half of the head. Once it's cool, I have done this hot. I don't recommend it. Just squish them out. It's wonderful. It's glorious. I roast garlic all the time because it's a wonderful spread. It's a great addition. Mashed potatoes, mac and cheese, any veggie dish, gratins, anything is really improved by the addition of roasted garlic. Again, make sure it's incorporated. And then, of course, you want to let your veggies cool. Then we'll melt your cheese a little bit more. I'm going to go ahead and throw mine in. You can use whatever veggies. I mean, I can imagine in the height of summer, all the different, you could add tiny tomatoes. Go Italian, make some pesto, blend that in. Maybe have some zucchini. Okay, so that's our mixture. I'm gonna pretend that our crust has baked. Right, so there's our crust. You should let it cool a little bit. The foraging on, and take your mixture, pour it in, and smooth it. It's a pretty thick one. The reason you want to cool is so you can handle the pain while you smooth this out. If you want to put a little more cheese on top, that's fine. Right, and then stick it in. 325 for about 45 minutes, the full size. Right, I'm gonna pull out the bread pudding. And take the foil off. Watch the steam. Oh, so lovely. We've already got some browning. I'm not gonna stick it back. I'm gonna serve it up and show you. So cheese on full cheese is gone. Put a little bit on top. And normally I would pop it back in and brown this a little bit more. You should also let it rest. And kind of, it'll fall. Eggs always puff and then fall. That's why your souffle falls. And I have a little bit of tomato sauce. One more. Here. Oh, you're fine. You're fine. Jordan's great at cleaning up. Okay, so plate. Hope you can see this. And make it a little fancy plating. This is our marinara. So spoon down on the plate. Take the empty spoon and kind of swoosh so that you get almost a Nike swoosh. And then I'm going to cut on the corner to make sure it's done. You could scoop this as well. We used to scoop all the sweetbread pudding. The edges. So you can see if you let this rest, you'll get a complete piece. Oh, steamy. Let's see. Okay, so here is our spinach and pea bread pudding. And I'll start with the cheesecake I already made. So we don't have to wait on it. This one's been chilled overnight. Now, I said in your recipe, if you have a paring knife, a utility knife, you can use the same one that you use to go around the cheesecake and pop it out of the spring form. You can also make these in like a jelly roll pan and cut them into little bars. That's great for an appetizer. So I'm going to slice. Little slice. This is an appetizer. Side, plate. And really top this with anything you want. I have some pico de gallo, olives. I'm going to do a little bit of the green onion. I even opened this prior to the class, so I wouldn't do this on camera. There we go. Pico de gallo. Imagine this in August on top of this with heirloom tomatoes. And a few of these. Some more cilantro. If you want to garnish it up. Be lovely for a cheese plate. So there you go. Southwest savory cheesecake. There. Last, my biscuits are done, but I'm going to show you this. Oh, it's bubbling though. Actually, not bad. Oh, it smells amazing. Okay, so I've got a shallow bowl, just the way I like to do this. And then crack those biscuits. They're really tender right now. Scoop up all those veggies. Try to keep the crust on top as best as possible. But fill the bowl with all that sauce. And there is your veggie cobbler.
Great. Tanya, do you want to bring the iPad around and show us all 3 dishes up close?
Turn it.
Okay.
So
tour.
Veggie cobbler. And over to the cheesecake. And coming over to the farmer's market bread pudding.
Gorgeous. Thank you. If anyone did cook along at home, I know we had someone say they were working with cauliflower. We'd love to see if you're willing to show us what you made, if you made something there, or if you've got any questions, feel free to come off mute and ask Tanya. Or just tell us in the chat what you made.
I'd love to know. Or if you make it later, come
Okay.
back and tell us.
Hi, Joya. I am making the vegetable cobbler right now.
Okay.
I didn't have too much problem with the cauliflower, so thank you for the help. I'm right now
Excellent.
making the biscuit topping.
Okay, perfect.
Mhm.
I made the bread pudding.
What do you think, Angela?
I think it's delicious. We've already
Wonderful.
cut in.
Oh, that looks gorgeous. Oh, yum. Joy and Angela, who gets to eat the experiment when you're done?
This is gonna be me.
Well, I only have one coworker here, so she's helping me eat it, and I'll probably take some home to my husband.
Perfect.
Oh, yes.
It's very good, though.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Any other questions from folks? I did put the link to the Good and Cheap cookbook. It's a great resource. Or if you have ideas for stuff you'd like to see us cook in future classes, we'd certainly love to hear that. What have we done in the past, Tanya? This is savory desserts. We did
Polenta.
polenta.
And that video is up on the CFA playlist. We did What was the first class?
I can't remember.
It's been a while. It's just December, but
Frittata.
Say it again, Angela.
Frittata.
oh,
Frittata.
frittata. All 3 ways you can make frittata.
Yeah.
So
So if
yeah,
there's things that you think your clients would be interested in playing with that you'd like to see, or you yourself have always wanted to figure out a way to do something good and cheap, please, we're always welcoming ideas. Because you know yourself, your family, and your communities better than we do. So we'd welcome that. I'll put, you've had the email from Tanya because you responded. Anything else we should be sure? They have the recipe.
they have the recipe. I'll be sending out an evaluation. We have videos going up next week, so they want to check those out. One more veggie, normally dessert, veggie strudel. Jordan and our other student, Lexi, did a wonderful job on that. We do have a Train the Trainer in April. That's our next class. It's a 2-day, separated by week. So it'll be 2 consecutive Tuesdays. And that's how to do these, how to do virtual cooking classes, demos, what have you. So if you have questions about doing them, that will help us improve this offering.
Great. Well, otherwise, I think that's what we got for today. Tanya, I am all the way up in Michigan visiting my parents this week, so I don't get to come and sneak in and eat the leftovers, which is heartbreaking. Maybe Angela or Joya will save me some.
I wish I could drop off a care package.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all. Have a wonderful Tuesday. I think it's
Yes.
Tuesday. And
Yes.
good to see you, Chef T. And we'll catch you all at the next class.
All right. Thank you all so much.